Charles is asking about the semi-automatic loading here. So his specific situation is, let's see. All right, so I'm on the handlebar crossing. All right, so let's set this one to the same. The handlebar crossing, man. Okay, there we go. There's a couple of signals. All right, so both of these charts, right, they're running today's workshop template. So if let's say I go into one, so I'm opening the BloodHound, on the right chart, and let's say, I make a little tweak, right? I throw this in, something like that, close it out, voila, I made a change, right? So obviously this chart didn't change yet. So if I reload the chart, right, the BloodHound on this other chart will see that a change was made and the file was updated, right? This BloodHound will go, oh, there's a newer file. This template file that I have loaded, there's a newer version on the hard drive, and it will load that newer version. The changes I just made over here, right, was saved back to the file, and then if I reload this chart, it'll recognize those changes, or it'll recognize there's a newer file on the hard drive, and it'll load that newer file. But what Charles is asking is, if he shuts down, so let's say he closes his workspace and then reopens it, will BloodHound load up the new changes? And that all depends. So remember, every time you open the interface and you close it, that saves back to the file. So I just saved, right, the new one back to the file. But if I go over here, let's say I'm, poking around, and if I open up this BloodHound over here, right, this BloodHound doesn't have those changes yet. So if I close this, I just saved that back to the file, right? Because always keep in mind, closing the BloodHound always saves back to the file. So by closing this BloodHound, I just overwrote the changes I made in the BloodHound on the right. These changes, I just overwrote them with the BloodHound on the left because I closed that interface, right? So if you make changes, always make sure that the BloodHound with the changes is the last one that you close, right? Make sure that this is the last window that you close so that these changes are the last changes that get saved back to the file. So now, here's Charles's question. What happens if I shut down, right? So let's close this workspace. I'll save it. Now what's going to happen when I open this up? Well, BloodHound is going to go, oh, look, there's a newer file. So let's load that newer file again. So actually, this is a little different situation here. Because we're opening the workspace for the first time, those BloodHounds aren't running, right? So those BloodHounds are going to be starting up and running for the very first time. And so when BloodHound is first started up, so in other words, when you first open a workspace, BloodHound starts up for the very first time, and it will always load from the hard drive. Right? On its very first start, it's always going to load from the hard drive. And so there we go. Voila. Both of these BloodHounds look exactly the same. They're both running the same file because they both loaded this template file from the hard drive because they just first started up for the very first time. Right? But, of course, if I go and put this back to the way it should be, right? Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that bar direction solver. Clean this up, right? Well, this BloodHound is not restarting. There's nothing forcing this BloodHound to start again. It's just running like it should be. So this BloodHound's not going to do anything, right? Now, if I shut down this workspace like it is, right? I saved the changes I just made over here on the chart to the right, right? Those were saved to the file. So if I close my workspace and reopen it, right, of course, both BloodHounds are going to be starting up for the very first time again, and they're both going to read from the they're going to read the file off the hard drive and load that version, right? So they'll be loading this version because when I closed the interface, it saved this current state back to the hard drive, right? It saved the current state of the system back to the file. So, all right, there you go, Charles. So hopefully that kind of clarifies things a little bit.